Hey everyone, I'm Angela Lin.
And I'm Jesse Lin, and welcome back to another episode of But Where Are You Really From? This week, it is Mother's Day weekend, and wow, we just had a really interesting hour-long conversation with our moms, and now we're planning on recapping that conversation for you guys. The episode's going to consist of basically this recap and that interview, which we did all in Mandarin with some Chinglish thrown in. So if you're able to listen to it, and understand it, feel free to go ahead. It's very interesting. If you're not, we hope this summary will pick your interest.
Yes, and I'm just going to throw this out there to hold myself accountable. I have high hopes of subtitling the Chinese full interview in English and uploading that to YouTube. Very ambitious endeavor, so maybe it won't happen, but I'm putting it out in the ether. So hopefully by the time you're listening to this, if I keep this in the edit, it means that it exists. And I encourage all of you to watch the YouTube version of this episode, because then you can watch actually our mamas and us.
Yes.
And it'll be subtitled in English so you can all understand what's going on.
And you can tell us if we look like our parents or not. Half of our parents. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, okay, so I found this was interesting. We kind of started very at the beginning, as we do with any guest, which is kind of like get to know them, introduce themselves, and I felt like both of our parents went way back. They're like, I'm from Taiwan, my, childhood, high school years, young adult years kind of introduction, which is very interesting because I'm not sure if that's what they thought we were looking for, or how they would actually introduce themselves to someone. But then again, I feel like I've seen my parents introduce themselves to new people at temple, and it's never anything that's really detailed. It's kind of just oh, my name is this, it's nice to meet you. They don't really talk much more in depth than that.
I think it was two things. I think it was one, they were kind of primed on what we were looking for, not in that question, but because we told them what kind of stuff we would be talking about in this episode. So I think they were kind of cart before the horse kind of situation, and they're just let me just tell you everything, because I don't know when you're going to be asking me these things.
Yeah.
And they're not used to being interviewed either. So then they're just I don't know, blah. And then I think the other was what you were saying in our 2-year anniversary episode, where it's just every time we talk to our parents, there is just there's so much more that comes out than what we expect. So I think it was a little bit of both, because definitely yes, your mom's answer to tell me about yourself was so much. I was whoa. But every question we asked, I would say, I think both our moms were giving a lot of detail.
Yeah, a lot of detail.
Every question.
It's I don't know if people ask, I don't know if they get asked that at all. It's kind of the work icebreaker thing. Everyone's used to that, where it's tell me about yourself and 3 interesting facts. I don't know if they have those kind of conversations. So then it's a little bit what you said. They're oh, wait, what do I say? Blah.
Why don't we talk about things that were most surprising, or we didn't know, because some things we've heard some of those stories, but some of them I was what? I didn't know that. Or you didn't know about my mom, or I didn't know about your mom. For example, you primed your mom on this monkey story. Y'all, Jesse's mom grew up with a pet monkey, among many other pets. And it was such a bizarre situation, because Jesse's tell them about the monkey. And I was what is this thing? And then I asked her, I'm sorry, is it normal to have a pet monkey in your village or just small town that you came from? And she said, nah. She just doesn't know, but they always had it.
When I tell people that my family is country bumpkin, I don't think they quite understand what I mean by that. And it's very hillbilly Taiwan kind of situation. Because I think our parents came from the same kind of more rural background. But I feel my parents are more hillbilly.
Yeah, sitch. Because your parents are actually from a different part of Taiwan.
Yeah, they're in a really rural part.
Yeah, my mom kept saying they were also 乡下, rural, town or whatever, and that's true, but she was still always part of Taipei, kind of boundaries. I guess the implication was just that like back in the day, Taipei was not built up, so it was
Yeah.
also like rural,
Yeah.
where she was. So
I think it's a different kind of level because there's definitely a lot of like still rural areas outside of Taipei, but I remember like where my grandparents still live, it used to be extremely difficult to get to. Like it was like a 12-hour drive from Taipei, and it's a small ass island. To drive to the middle of it for 12 hours is like ridiculous because there weren't really great bridges. It was like mountainside roads, so you were just kind of like winding around forever. It's changed a lot now. It's much easier to get there, but back then it was like a rural and isolated, I think, are the two things. But to your point, what did I not know? Well, first of all, your mom was very boastful about her athletic prowess. She's like,
yeah.
I was the number 2 long jumper, and I
Yeah,
was
she
like,
was.
you better work,
You
bitch.
work, bitch. Yeah. I actually do remember she showed me at some point like pictures of her doing like mid jump in track and stuff. So I did remember that, but it was kind of surprising that it like became such a like
That's
sub
amazing.
theme of the conversation because she hasn't like talked about that in a really long time, and she like doesn't exercise at all anymore. So I'm like,
Well,
where did that go?
yeah. Wait, she's like how? She's like not taller. Is she taller than you?
No.
You're not. You're
Well,
taller than
yeah,
her.
sorry. She is taller than me because, and I got beef with them because of the fact that I'm shorter than both of them. No, but she's not tall. She's only 5'1".
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know.
Everyone else must have been like a midget.
Okay, TBH though, I'm really good at jumping. Because actually I was just talking about this with someone else, which is a different kind of jumping. Well, I did track as well in high school, but I didn't do jumping. But we like tried it once, and I wasn't bad. But in CrossFit, there's like a sort of jumping where you're jumping vertically up. Like you have like boxes that you jump on. And there would be once in a while where they'd like do a like box jump challenge, and they'd like stack them higher and higher, and you add like more things, and you're like gauging by like the number of inches above the ground you're jumping. And like I remember I was able to jump like pretty fucking high, especially
Oh.
for like how short I am. So maybe I got some of her jumping genes.
I don't actually know the body type for long jumpers. Is it like gymnasts where it's like short and
I
compact
have
muscle?
no idea.
I don't
I mean, that doesn't make sense to me in like just like envisioning it, because I would imagine having long legs just means you can jump farther because your leg span is just like, I don't
Maybe.
know.
In any case, other surprising things. What did you want? She said she also inherited like being good at cooking.
No, no, no. She said that she's just okay at cooking.
Oh, okay.
That,
What
but
was
she
the other?
inherited her singing
Oh,
skills
yeah,
from
that's
my
right. I've never seen
grandpa.
your mom sing.
Oh, she loved to sing. That girl loved to sing. You come back to Taiwan with us. She got a karaoke
Karaoke.
machine
Oh,
in her
love it.
home. She loves to sing. She is good at singing.
Okay.
But she does this kind of like falsetto thing as her like main singing voice. It's very Taiwanese, I would say, like that era Taiwanese
Of
kind of
course.
singing. But she's
Yeah.
good. She's good at it. I guess I just didn't know her dad was also good at singing, because I didn't know my grandpa. He, like she mentioned, he already passed away by the time I was born. So
Well, on my mom's side, I didn't know that she like moved here and then married my dad.
yeah, that was
I was
surprising.
like, wait, what?
Yeah, you said previously that they were just like they knew each other from the rural place that they grew up and just like decided to get married.
Yeah, she did say that, but my timeline is off because they didn't get married. I don't think they get married in Taiwan. They got married in the US, apparently.
Yeah, y'all. Well, let's backtrack. Both our parents, both our moms, we asked like, "How did you meet Dad?" and like, "What did you think about them?" And they both were like, "Meh."
No impression. They were like, I don't remember anything from the first time that I met them. And I was like, ooh,
Just
ooh.
like unimpressed, unimpressed. I think the reality is that like we approach relationships very differently now
Yeah.
in this generation than their generations. Basically, both of them met in like very similar fashions, which is just like I was introduced to him by like friends or like coworkers, whatever. And there was no impression because they just like that's how they met them, was not with the intent of marrying them or dating them. It was just like we got introduced to like know each other, and then it was basically like, well, it's you're around the time to get married. Like these are the people you know, and like he's fine. So like, here we
Yeah.
go.
And what was interesting is that like my mom did at least admit like the forces of attraction are the same. She was basically saying like you look at the person and you're like, are they attractive? Do you have a good job? Like so it's not like that crazy, but it's just like they have much less options than we do now.
We didn't know that both our moms wanted to work in broadcasting of some sort as their like dream
My mom
jobs.
wanted to be a tour guide.
Oh, a tour. Oh, sorry, I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
confused.
Your mom wanted to be a broadcast writer?
I'm very confused. She said
Okay.
director, but I don't think
Okay.
that's what that is. But anyway, she wanted to work in like a television station,
Yeah.
TV station, which I didn't. I was like, we're running too long. I cannot plug this in now. But I was like, oh, isn't it ironic that then your daughter worked in TV later? Because I did work in TV when I was in New York. But yeah, I didn't know your mom wanted. Yeah, your mom sounds like she really wants to travel. I feel like you gotta just like throw her some cash so that she can like go traveling.
Well, the thing is that she doesn't like leaving my dad alone. That's the main thing. Otherwise she would definitely go back to Taiwan for even with the quarantine, but she doesn't want to leave him alone for like a too long period of time. But no, yeah, I've like offered. I mean, like my offer is serious. I'm not
Yeah.
facetious. Like she went on a tour a few years ago to Austria, Switzerland, Sweden, or
Yeah.
something. I paid for that bitch.
Wait,
I'm not calling my mom a bitch. I'm calling the
yeah,
ship
yeah,
a
yeah,
bitch.
yeah. I wonder if it was the same one my parents went on. Like, I know they didn't go at the same time, but like they literally did that same trip, like Austria and like random shit.
Yeah, it was really funny because my mom was like, I'm going on a Taiwanese tour with your aunts. So my aunts also went. It was very bizarre because she went on a tour from a completely different country coming from US to visit a completely different country.
That's what my parents do. Yeah, that's what I mean by Chinese bus tours. It's always run by Taiwanese people, but I just call it the Chinese bus
Yeah.
tour. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the main concern about sponsoring them to go somewhere is just that they kind of need to be chaperoned at this point. So you have to find someone that will kind of like safely take them to certain places. Although like I don't think my parents are as helpless as they like paint themselves to be because they're always like we don't know what to do. We don't know where to go, what to see. I'm like I don't know. I think you guys can figure it out. Like I left them alone for a day here in the city and they were fine.
My parents like to be shuttled around, but my dad likes to have freedom. Like, because our whole wedding trip, we'd like showed them around Spain and we like did the whole thing. Like, they didn't have to think about anything and we
Yeah.
just like planned it all. But my dad likes to walk. So he'd just be like, okay, peace out. I like woke up, bye for 3 hours. I'm going to walk around the city and like check it out
Nice.
myself. What else? My mom, I did not know. First of all, I did not know that. I knew that she did night school, but I thought that was just. I didn't know that was like so much of her education.
I didn't know that was like a system.
It's like a
Yeah,
thing. Yeah,
yeah,
so it apparently we learned that there is both a night school and day school for high school and college.
yes.
Or I don't know if she also did middle school, but like it's like a thing that like the school system can be broken up into day and night shifts. And the night school is like 5 to 10 p.m. So she said she would like take the train because she didn't live in the exact city where the school was. She would like take the train and walk half an hour after getting off the train to get to the school and then do that same thing on the way back, even though class ended at 10. And I was like, isn't that like sketchy? And she was like, no, it's pretty
Different times,
safe.
man. Different times. She
I
also said that
guess.
night school was for students with like slightly lower scoring
Yeah.
entry exams. I'm like, take me to. I hated going to school early in the morning. Night school for me.
Nah. I'll take that normal school. Give me that normal school.
Night school for me. I'm trying to think what else they mentioned. I do remember because my mom has talked about her parents before, but I love it every time when she's like when she tells us that or tells me that the roles are reversed. So like normally it's like in a traditional Asian family, like the dad is the disciplinarian and the mom is kind of like the more relaxed individual. And she was like, that's not my experience at all. Like your grandfather was like really chill and your grandmother was the one that like wore the pants in the relationship.
But I don't understand how that's the traditional setup because at least like our upbringing, the like tiger mom stereotype is what it was. So
Yeah.
that implies the mom was always the strict one.
I think the Tiger Mom thing is like a newish thing. I feel like it's always been like the dad, like my parents, like my dad's more so the disciplinarian, and my mom's more so like the chill one.
Not in this family.
Reverse for you.
Like comparing and contrasting our moms, something that surprised me was like when we were asking like about their immigration story and that
Oh, very different.
experience. Yeah, super different. And like honestly, I was kind of expecting both of them to be more like your mom, where she was very open and honest with us, basically like being really lonely when she first moved here and like not understanding the language. I think her analogy was like I felt like I was like both deaf and mute because
Yeah.
I couldn't understand
Yeah.
anything, and like she didn't start feeling better about her situation until she had you and then had kind of like a purpose. Yeah, it was all you, baby. Whereas my mom was like, oh no, I wasn't lonely at all. I was like, oh, this is fine. And I mean, I didn't think about it, but I guess it makes sense that she was like, because yeah, she already had my brother who was already like 6 or 7 at the time. So she had her hands full with like raising him too much to be lonely. And that makes sense, as your mom said that was the turning point for her when she started to get less lonely was when she had you. So
Yeah. The timeline's a little bit fuzzy for me as to like the immigration and then like when I was there. But I can imagine that's the case because like as she mentioned, you had to find a job and then you just kind of had to do whatever you could with the language skills that you had. And it's more than likely, like I'm just thinking about my dad's family and how I know all of them. Almost everyone was probably working. So it wasn't like you had a chance to just like hang out with somebody and like acclimate. So it probably was like a really lonely experience because she probably didn't have it. She didn't probably have anything to do and nobody to
yeah.
talk to, which would be really, really, really isolating. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely like props to all the immigrant mamas
Yeah.
who made that journey. Even if my mom tried to make it sound like she didn't have.
I'm sure she did,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like the whole like I was gonna say like the no impression of our dads. Like ask me again in like 30 years if I had impression of my partner at that point and I might be like, I don't know, like uh, because you're just like older and like maybe you just literally don't remember. And
Yeah.
I also feel like the further away you are from like a trauma, the less traumatic it is for you. And you might look back on that period and be like, you know what, it was actually fine.
I think there's also a little bit of like trying to stay strong kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it's still not normal to like show your emotion and vulnerability. So I was because my mom's whole thing was like the whole time she was just like, "No, I didn't regret it at all because it was like the best for my children and like that's all that matters is like
Yeah.
doing the best for them." And like I don't think that was a lie. I just think that maybe she's like suppressing some actual feelings of like loneliness or sadness that she probably had that but were outweighed by this like sense of duty or whatever.
I do think it really shows how centered we are in our parents' lives. Like it's not a surprise because we are like the reason, at least for at least your mom has stated very clearly, like you guys are like the reason that one of the big reasons that she came here. But to hear someone describe their hopes and dreams as your life is very different from just understand like hearing that tangentially through stories and pressure. Like to hear someone actually say that your life is like why they did something is it's surprising because I don't know if I would for anybody else. Because now it's kind of like the whole zhuzh is like you got to take care of yourself, like not that you have to take care of yourself to the point where you're like obsessively selfish, but like you wouldn't sacrifice your own self needs to service the needs of someone else. So it's like a very different kind of like life perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is probably why we're constantly struggling with this whole like, am I living my life for me or for my parents thing? Because they did give up
yeah,
so much
yeah,
for us. So it is, I mean, and it's the struggle we're dealing with constantly, which is like, I think we've come to terms with the fact that we do need to like value ourselves and what we want and like live our lives, but we can find other ways where we like give back to them and like, show that gratitude without having to like give up everything that is us and our free will just to pay that back to them.
and honestly, like the more that I talk to my parents, the more I'm like, why did you want me to live this like rigid life? Because I'm living the life that I feel like you wanted to live the way that if you had the options, the means, that's what you would have wanted to do, what you wanted to do. So I feel more and more so, as you mentioned, like less and less slaved to this like idea of what I need to be in order to please my parents, and more so vibing with the fact that I'm kind of living my life in accordance to maybe how they would have wanted to if they had the means and the opportunity, which I think is like, live your best life.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's totally true because the kind of like recurring theme in a lot of the way that they answered our questions about like what did you want to do and like what did you actually do and whatever, a lot of it just ended up being like whatever gave me like the most stability and like I just
Hmm.
got whatever would, make sure that I could function and like provide and blah blah blah. It was all
Yeah.
centered around this like stability theme. But we did ask them the like the pipe dream stuff and like you said, like they all had the dreams,
Hopes and
right? Like
dreams. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
TV broadcaster, tour guide, like things that are a bit more whimsical and like
Yeah.
not necessarily tied to just like traditional stability type jobs.
Yeah.
And to your point, it's like if we are past the point of stability, if we like already have stability for ourselves, why shouldn't we shoot for the things that seem a little bit more whimsical to like those kind of more stringent
Yeah.
viewpoints if that is what they would have wanted to do anyway if they
Yeah.
had stability.
Yeah, I agree. And at the same time, these conversations give us insight as to why they are so concerned with stability, because they didn't really have that. So it's always this kind of like fear of you progeny falling back into where they came
Yes.
from. Although, like, let's be real, like, I don't think that that would ever happen. Like, even if I were working like a McDonald's job, I think the quality of life would still be like
Yeah.
significantly better than what they were describing. But yeah, it's definitely eye opening. Like, I think I mentioned to you, so it's just like crazy how much change that our parents have lived through.
Yeah, my mom talked about kids not having shoes going to school, like that they normally wore like I don't know, were barefoot or had little like
Yeah.
wooden thongs or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to belabor this because we do have like the full interview with them that I
Yeah.
hope to subtitle for the YouTube version. So let's wrap it up with our fortune cookie recap of what their current hopes and dreams are and gush a little bit about them before we sign off. So moving into our sweet treat, we basically asked our moms, like, what are your hopes and dreams now? We heard earlier what your childhood ones were, but what about now as like adults and you're planted firmly in the US and blah blah. And what gave me hope was that even though like a lot of the initial conversation was centered around us and like providing for us, both the ways that our moms answered was about kind of like them. I mean, I was like partially in my mom's answer. Basically, my mom was like, "Oh, I want my kids to like live near me so that we can spend time together." But then she also was like, "And I want to like go back to traveling with your dad," because they did that a lot before the pandemic, and that was like hopeful for me because I think she tends to be like a hermit. So it was actually like a like surprising thing to hear, and I'm glad she's like expressed that because I do want her to like get out more and like experience more things and like just live her best life. They're my parents at least are retired, so like they shouldn't be held back if possible. So I was happy to hear her kind of like hope for something that was like for herself.
Yeah, it's funny because we've discussed this so many times, but our parents are basically like flip-flop personalities. Like my dad maps to your mom, and your dad maps to my mom in terms of like chillness and
Hmm.
gregariousness. So like I know my mom wants to travel, like I know she wants to go places, but I also know that she really doesn't like leaving my dad alone for too long by himself. And he's the one that has like is more hermit-like and less likely to go somewhere. So I've yet to crack exactly how to work that, but like no one's gonna say no to a free trip. So it's just about finding the right thing that will get him interested. And I think the good thing is like having more conversations like this will get me closer to what that looks like. But yeah, my mom said the same thing. It's just like see her more. And honestly, like with the current situation being what it is, I probably can, especially if airplane tickets are like still not super expensive. I could
Hmm.
probably go like for a few days over the weekend, like stuff like that. So yeah, she expressed a desire to see me more.
And she just wanted to like live healthy
Yeah,
and
to be
happy in
healthy.
general. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then we ended on a fond, forced "I love you" session with them because we ABCs don't get that shit enough, so we forced it.
I will say my mom does hug me and tell me she loves me a lot.
You guys are so
So, yeah,
sweet.
I'm a mama's boy.
We do it a little bit more now, but I'm definitely the instigator of that. Or I'm like, I need this.
I think they'll get more used to it. It's kind of like the acclimation. It's the same thing with my dad. The last time I said goodbye to him, I tried to give him a hug and he was like,
Oh yeah,
I was
totally.
like, that's just a hug.
I'm your son. Yeah.
They're just not used to like that kind of like physical intimacy. Because I don't remember him ever hugging my grandparents, so that
No.
kind of like physical intimacy is just not there.
Well, listeners, we learned a ton about our moms during this conversation. We had a lot of fun. So here's your daily motivation to go ask your parents about their lives because I think you'll learn a lot more than you think you're going to. And they'll be so happy to share with you.
Yeah,
So
they
do
will.
it. And tell us what you learn. Email us at telluswhereyou'refrom@gmail.com or hit us up on social media. Let us know what you find out about your parents or let us know what was the most heartwarming thing you learned from our session with our mamas. And happy Mother's Day to all of the mommies out there. And come back next week for another episode. And until then, 再见, bitches.